Warning! This show pulls no punches. Expect blunt language, dark humor, and opinions sharp enough to cut through cable news bubble wrap. If satire, sarcasm, or inconvenient facts make you itchy, consider this your off-ramp. For everyone else, it's Friday, October 3rd, 2025, and Data and Dissonance is rolling. Buckle up and keep your hands inside the truth at all times.
Day 3 of a shutdown that has DC pointing fingers like a bad family reunion, and the fallout's already biting. Billions frozen for big city projects, WIC running dry for moms and kids, and National Guard soldiers pulling shifts without paychecks. Add to that the Justice Department swinging an axe at its biggest anti-cartel task force, and OPEC playing seesaw with the oil markets, and you've got chaos on every front. Tonight, we cut through the noise, roast the spin, and call it like it is. This is Data and Dissonance, your Friday drive time dose of fire, facts, and a little fun along the way. All right, enough of the warm-up. Let's bring in the crew. Because Friday's not Friday without the voices that make this show tick.
MAGA Fire Friday, baby, and I've been waiting all week for this. The swamp creatures thought a shutdown would scare us. Nah, this is leverage, and if Blue City bailouts have to take a back seat, good. The fight's here, the heat's here, and I'm bringing gasoline for the dumpster fire that is DC.
Balance matters and perspective matters. This week wasn't just about political theater. It was about real consequences. WIC moms wondering if they'll have formula next week. Guard families watching bills pile up. I'm here to break through the noise, point out the spin, and remind people that governance isn't a game.
You shut down the government, you kill the task forces, you shift priorities, and suddenly cartels are smiling. Coincidence? Please. There are strings attached to this whole thing, and tonight I'm connecting them. Because when you scrap OCDETF after decades, you don't just shuffle the deck chairs, you sink the ship.
While the right cheers a shutdown and the left points fingers, actual people are hurting. Guard families unpaid, kids relying on WIC hanging in the balance. And when oil markets drop, it's not Wall Street that feels it first. It's everyday workers, gig drivers, and families commuting every day. That's where my lens is tonight.
And I'm Artie, a conservative for 32 years. Not a slogan shouter or cultist, but someone who believes this country needs honesty and grit. Tonight, we're taking these stories head on. So pour your coffee, hit play, and let's do it. Tonight's show is powered by the Caleb Rourke Thriller series. If you haven't grabbed the Covenant Protocol or the Prophet Directive, now's the time. And keep an eye out for Black Echo Rising dropping soon. These are high-stakes, near-future thrillers about shadowy AI, government cover-ups, and one man fighting back against the system. Perfect for fans of Tom Clancy and Brad Thor, and you can find them all right now on Amazon. And if you want to fuel your own fight while you listen, check out our Data and Dissonance merch lineup. We've got 3 signature coffee blends: High Lakes Light Roast, Rock Creek Medium, and Bitterroot Dark French Roast. All roasted in the USA and perfect for late-night prep or early morning grind. Plus mugs, trucker hats, bumper stickers, hoodies, socks, even Gen X gear that lets the world know where you stand. Hit up the merch store, grab your favorite roast and some gear, and rep the show while you sip. Day 3 of the shutdown, and it's already hitting hard. The White House froze billions in big city projects. Chicago and New York transit funds on ice. WIC is projected to run out of cash within days. And the National Guard is still working without pay while politicians posture. So let's dig in. Brian, you first. Is this real leverage or reckless hostage-taking?
This is leverage, and it's about time. For decades, Republicans sat back and let Democrats treat the federal budget like an endless piggy bank. They'd stuff it with billions for Blue City projects, while telling the rest of us to just deal with it. Finally, somebody said no. Freezing billions meant for Chicago and New York transit is a warning shot. Pork is over. As for WIC, I hate that families are stuck in the middle. But let's be honest, Democrats created this trap. They've prioritized illegals, pet projects, and foreign wars over Americans. Now that the spigot is closed, they cry crocodile tears. This isn't cruelty. This is accountability, and sometimes accountability hurts.
Brian out here hotter than a gas stove in AOC's nightmares. Rachel, leverage or lunacy?
It's both, Artie. Targeting pork projects makes sense politically because those projects are luxuries, not necessities. But letting WIC wither on the vine, that's not leverage, that's cruelty disguised as strategy. These are moms wondering how to feed their babies. You don't prove fiscal responsibility by punishing infants and National Guard families. That's where Republicans blow the messaging. If you want credibility, protect the essentials and freeze the fluff. That's how you show leadership. Instead, they've lumped it all together and handed Democrats the perfect talking point.
Rachel pulling no punches, folks. Apparently, she doesn't think starving babies makes for great campaign ads. Daniel, connect the strings for us.
This is no coincidence. When you simultaneously freeze billions, let Guard soldiers go unpaid, and run WIC into the ground, you're creating maximum pain points. Why? So people start demanding a federal emergency solution. The elites thrive on chaos. They break trust in institutions so they can swoop in with a fix that gives them even more power. This isn't clumsy politics, it's manufactured instability. And I'd bet money there's already a plan written up to solve it all in one swoop.
Daniel's board has more red yarn than CNN's ratings chart. Skylar, what's your angle here?
My angle is that this is negligence, plain and simple. Families are already struggling to afford groceries, rent, and gas. Now they're told that programs like WIC, which are lifelines for kids, are running out of funds. And soldiers are working shifts without paychecks. That's disgraceful. Political leaders love to act like this is a chess match. But pawns are people. Real families who can't be collateral in some power play. Whether it's red or blue, the fact that leadership keeps treating Americans this way is why trust in government is crumbling.
Let's keep it rolling. Who's taking the hardest hit right now? Brian, start us off.
Blue city elites are the loudest criers, but let's not kid ourselves. They're sitting on billions. They'll be fine. The real victims are the families who've been abandoned by decades of Democrat mismanagement. Moms on WIC, they've been used as political props forever, and now Dems are weaponizing their suffering to score points. But I'll tell you who's not hurting. The swamp bureaucrats still collecting paychecks while pretending they care.
Brian's ready to slap the latte out of a Chicago alderman's hand. Rachel, who's hurting?
It's not the elites, Brian. It's the families at the bottom. Single moms trying to buy formula. Guard spouses watching bills stack up while their partners work without pay. These are the people who always get squeezed first in a shutdown. And pretending it's just elites whining is missing the real human cost.
Both of you are right in part. But the intended hurt? It's the Guard families. Politicians know military households are proud, resilient, and not quick to complain. They'll keep serving even without pay. But you stretch that too long, you break their morale. And broken morale in the Guard means weakened readiness. That's the real target. Destabilize the military from within.
It's working class families across the board. Rural or urban, red or blue, doesn't matter. People living paycheck to paycheck are the ones hit hardest by higher costs, lost benefits, and missed paychecks. Elites don't feel it. Politicians don't feel it. It's always the workers who get crushed when the government decides to play games.
Final round on this one. How long can this shutdown drag before the dam breaks?
Democrats will blink within 2 weeks. They can't survive politically with WIC drying up and blue cities screaming for cash. Republicans just need to hold the line and not cave. If they stand strong, this ends with real wins.
The damage is already done. Every day this drags, people lose faith in government's ability to function. Even if it ends tomorrow, families have already been put through unnecessary stress. The crack is here, whether politicians admit it or not.
This goes longer than people think, because it's supposed to. The more pain, the bigger the eventual emergency bill that comes with strings attached. Watch for a package solution that fixes WIC, pays the guard, and conveniently expands federal authority. That's the real play.
Families can't survive more than a couple weeks of this. When paychecks don't show up and WIC benefits stop, it's not a matter of political brinkmanship anymore. It's survival. That's when the public turns and leaders lose legitimacy. And the fact we're even talking about this shows how broken the system is.
All right, that's segment 1 in the books. We've got Brian calling this a victory lap, Rachel saying stop playing games with formula, Daniel connecting shutdowns to shadowy power grabs, and Skylar reminding us it's real people who bleed while DC postures. Don't go anywhere. Segment 2 is next, and trust me, the DOJ's latest stunt makes this shutdown look like amateur hour. All right, let's shift gears, because while everyone's eyes are glued to the shutdown circus, the Justice Department just dropped a bombshell that's flying under the radar. They've dismantled OCDETF. That's the Organized Crime Drug Enforcement Task Forces, the backbone of America's fight against cartels since the 1980s. Nearly 300 positions gone overnight. They're calling it streamlining. But at a time when fentanyl overdoses are skyrocketing and border chaos is already a national security issue, pulling the plug on the biggest anti-cartel unit sounds more like sabotage than reform. Daniel, this one has your fingerprints all over it. What's really going on here? Why shut this down now?
You don't pull the plug on OCDETF unless someone stands to gain from it. And I'll tell you who's smiling right now. The cartels. This task force wasn't perfect, but it was one of the few federal structures that actually went after cartel money, following the paper trails, seizing billions, and choking the lifeline that keeps organized crime alive. Shutting it down now, with the border bleeding and fentanyl killing tens of thousands, is either the dumbest timing in history or the most intentional. My bet? Intentional. Somebody up top decided weakening enforcement helps them. Maybe it's about letting more chaos fuel calls for bigger government. Maybe it's about keeping cartel money flowing through banks that quietly pad campaign coffers. But mark my words, this isn't about efficiency, it's about control.
Daniel says the cartel just got a stimulus package courtesy of DOJ Brian. You've been chomping at the bit, go.
This is exactly what you get when Democrats run the show. Weakness, chaos, and failure. Trump had the cartels on the run. Fentanyl seizures hit record highs, and cross-border trafficking was collapsing because the hammer came down. And now, they shut down the one group built to fight back. Don't let the word streamlining fool you. That's swamp speak for sabotage. They want open borders, they want drugs flowing, and they want to use the resulting chaos to smear conservatives as uncaring, while their own policies literally kill Americans. Every fentanyl death after this is on their hands. Period.
Brian's hotter than a chili pepper on Alex Jones's breakfast burrito. Rachel, give me the balanced take here.
OCDETF had problems, let's be honest. It was bureaucratic, it duplicated efforts, and it was slow to adapt. So, restructuring wasn't necessarily a bad idea, but you don't blow it up in the middle of a fentanyl crisis. That's reckless. If you want reform, you fix from within, not dismantle while the crisis is peaking. The timing is indefensible, and it's going to send exactly the wrong signal. That cartels are free to breathe easier. At the very least, this shows terrible judgment. At worst, it's deliberate negligence.
Rachel says bad timing, not a conspiracy. Skylar, last word on this round.
This is a disaster for communities. Fentanyl isn't a political football. It's killing kids in small towns, suburbs, and big cities alike. And instead of strengthening the fight, DOJ is pulling resources. That means fewer prosecutions, fewer investigations, and more drugs slipping through. Streamlining or not, people on the ground are going to feel the impact. Families will bury loved ones because Washington decided efficiency mattered more than lives.
All right, Fallout time. Brian, what happens next?
The cartels pop champagne. That's the fallout. They'll push more product, more brazenly, and they'll spread their influence deeper into American cities. Law enforcement will be undermanned, and prosecutors will be overloaded. The only people benefiting are cartel bosses and corrupt politicians who like the chaos.
Rachel, what do you see?
Courtrooms bogged down, prosecutors left scrambling. Fewer task force resources means fewer cases brought to trial, and the cases that do make it will drag longer. The fentanyl epidemic was already overwhelming communities. This makes the backlog worse.
And don't forget, this isn't just fallout, it's cover-up. You kill OCDETF, you bury years of files, investigations, and financial trails. That means certain connections, cartel to politician, cartel to banker, quietly vanish. That's why the timing matters. Erase the evidence, then call it efficiency.
Meanwhile, families lose. More drugs in schools, more overdoses in neighborhoods, more kids lost. Every time a politician says streamlining, I hear someone else's kid won't make it home. That's the fallout. Communities suffer while leaders pat themselves on the back.
Let's close this one out. Big picture. Was this a legitimate reform effort or flat-out sabotage? Brian, start us off.
This isn't reform, it's sabotage dressed up in a bureaucratic trench coat. Don't buy the word streamlining for a second. Streamlining means making something faster, cleaner, more effective. But how in the hell do you make America safer by gutting nearly 300 positions that were dedicated to taking down the most violent, dangerous criminal organizations on Earth? That's not streamlining. That's neutering law enforcement right when fentanyl is flooding our streets. And what's even worse is the timing. We're in the middle of the worst overdose epidemic in history, the border is a sieve, and cartels are expanding operations deeper into the U.S. than ever before. And DOJ's big move is to kill the one hammer we had? It's sabotage, plain and simple. This administration wants open borders, they want dependency, and they want chaos. Because chaos justifies more government. Don't let the suits in D.C. fool you. They're not reforming, they're surrendering. And surrender is sabotage.
Brian's saying this isn't reform. It's the DOJ handing El Chapo's buddies a welcome basket. Rachel, what say you?
I'll give a little nuance here, Artie, but I end up in nearly the same place. In theory, reforming OCDETF wasn't a bad idea. It had bureaucratic bloat, it had redundancy with other units. And sometimes cases did get tangled in red tape. So, if you wanted to actually restructure, fine. There's a case for that. But here's the problem, you don't dismantle the plane while it's mid-flight. And that's exactly what DOJ did. At the peak of a fentanyl crisis, when cartel money is fueling violence and instability, you don't cut resources, you add them. Even if the long-term goal was good. The execution was so catastrophically bad that it crosses into sabotage territory, whether they meant it or not. Because let's be real, what's the outcome? More drugs on the street, fewer prosecutions, families left exposed. And when outcomes kill Americans, I don't care what the intentions were, you own that. If it walks like sabotage and talks like sabotage, I'm not going to sugarcoat it.
Rachel giving DOJ a failing grade, even while admitting the homework assignment wasn't crazy. Daniel, this sounds like your bread and butter. Talk to me.
This wasn't reform, Artie. This was a hit job. And here's why. OCDETF didn't just go after cartels, it went after their money. And when you trace cartel money, you don't just end up at border tunnels or stash houses, you end up in banks. You end up in shell companies. You end up in financial systems that connect straight back to political donors and international power brokers. Killing OCDETF isn't about cutting waste. It's about cutting off the bloodhound that was following the money trail too close to the people in power. This isn't conspiracy, it's history. Whenever enforcement gets too close to the elite, you see sudden reorganizations that conveniently erase investigations and files. Think about it. Decades of cartel financial cases, contacts, ongoing probes, suddenly buried. Call it sabotage, call it a cover-up, call it corruption. Whatever label you want, the result is the same. Cartels get stronger, elites get safer, and the American people get played. So yeah, sabotage, with a capital S.
Daniel says this isn't reform. It's a cartel Christmas gift wrapped by DOJ Skylar. Round us out.
Call it reform, sabotage, incompetence. The word doesn't matter, the outcome does, and the outcome is devastating. Families in small towns are going to keep losing kids to fentanyl overdoses, and prosecutors will be left scrambling without resources. Communities already living under cartel intimidation will see even fewer investigations and even less help. You don't get to pat yourself on the back for efficiency when the price is people's lives. And the worst part is that leaders act like Americans won't notice. But they will, because every funeral, every overdose, every headline about cartel violence ties back to a system that chose paperwork over people. That's not reform. That's abandonment. And when government abandons its duty to protect, people lose faith in the very idea of justice. That's the long-term sabotage, not just against law enforcement, but against the trust that holds this country together.
All right, you heard it. Brian says straight sabotage. Rachel says bad reform that became sabotage by default. Daniel says it's a cover-up protecting elites. And Skylar says it doesn't matter what you call it. The families are the ones who pay the price. Either way, the cartels are raising a glass tonight, and America's left holding the tab. When we come back, the oil markets are tumbling, OPEC's adding barrels, and gas prices might drop. But is it real relief, or just another trap before winter? That's next. Oil prices just hit 16-week lows. OPEC Plus is pumping out more barrels, and gas is finally sliding down at the pump. Some states could see prices dip below $3 a gallon again. But is this real relief, or just another setup before winter demand slams us? Let's dig in. Rachel, you're first.
It's real in the short term. Families filling up this weekend will feel it. But in the bigger picture, this is a head fake. OPEC doesn't give out charity. They play long-term power games. They flood the market now to drop prices. Then when everyone's comfortable, they cut production and squeeze us again, usually when demand spikes in the winter. It's the same cycle every few years. And because America still hasn't reestablished true energy independence, we're chained to OPEC's decisions. That means your paycheck, your grocery bill, and your heating costs in January depend on what a cartel of foreign oil ministers feel like doing. So yeah, enjoy the cheaper fill-up this weekend, but don't count on it lasting.
Rachel says this is the gas station version of a used car salesman special. Looks shiny, falls apart in 3 months. Brian, your take?
This is exactly why Trump was right about energy dominance. Under him, we didn't care what OPEC did. We were drilling, we were fracking, we were exporting. OPEC could try to play games, but America set the pace. Then Biden came in, killed the Keystone Pipeline, shut down leases, and turned us back into beggars. So now every family in America is at the mercy of OPEC's manipulation. Relief? Sure, maybe for a couple weeks. But if you think OPEC is doing this out of kindness, you probably also believe CNN's ratings. This is a trap, plain and simple. The only fix is drilling here, producing here, and never letting foreign oil cartels dictate whether Americans can afford to drive to work.
Brian basically wants to hand out oil rigs like Oprah gives away cars. Daniel, you connecting dots on this one?
OPEC never acts randomly, Artie. They act strategically, and their timing is impeccable. The US is in political chaos. The government's shut down. Families are on edge. What better way to calm the waters temporarily than to drop oil prices, make people feel a little relief, and then yank it back once winter hits? That's not economics, that's leverage. They know if Americans are comfortable now, we won't push too hard on reforms. Then when they squeeze later, we're desperate and more willing to accept compromises, whether it's foreign deals, concessions, or more entanglements abroad. It's manipulation, and it always comes at the worst possible time for working families. Call it a trap, because that's exactly what it is.
Daniel basically saying Exxon's playing chess while we're still fumbling with checkers. Skylar, round one's yours.
This is exactly why relying on fossil fuels keeps us stuck in this abusive cycle. Families ride this roller coaster of cheap gas, one month and sky-high gas the next, and politicians use it as a weapon, while OPEC uses it as leverage. People can't budget their lives around price swings that change week to week. And instead of breaking the cycle with renewables and real alternatives, leaders double down on oil dependency and then pretend to be shocked when families get crushed again. So yeah, this relief is real, but it's temporary, and it's another reminder that until we move past fossil fuel addiction, working people will always be trapped in someone else's power game.
How does this tie into the shutdown and the wider economy?
It ties in perfectly, because both show Biden's total incompetence. Shutdown chaos on one hand, and now we're begging OPEC for scraps on the other. It proves Bidenomics is dead. Inflation, energy dependency, and debt, all caused by Democrat mismanagement. And now families are caught in the middle, praying gas goes down while their benefits get cut. Trump warned about this, and he was right. This isn't just an energy issue. It's an American sovereignty issue.
I see it as mixed signals. The shutdown sends uncertainty through the markets. Families and businesses don't know what's coming. But low oil prices can calm some of that panic, at least at the consumer level. The problem is that these signals cancel each other out. People might save at the pump, but then they see WIC collapsing or guard families unpaid. And that relief gets drowned out by anxiety. It's a net zero. You can't run an economy on gas prices alone. Stability matters more than short-term dips.
It's no coincidence. OPEC's decisions often sync with Western chaos. Shutdown in DC, DOJ in disarray, families anxious, and boom, oil prices fall. It's meant to keep people distracted, to give them just enough comfort so they don't connect the dots. Then, when the crisis deepens in winter, oil jumps, chaos spreads, and the public's too exhausted to fight back. This isn't random. It's coordinated leverage at the exact moment America is weakest.
For working families, none of this matters if it doesn't translate to stability. Gas might drop, but groceries are still high. Rent is still high. Paychecks aren't stretching. People are getting crushed between shutdown uncertainty and an energy market that whipsaws them constantly. That's why I say the shutdown and oil markets are linked, because both show how fragile the system is when families are left at the mercy of elites and cartels.
What happens next?
What happens next is the same thing that always happens under weak leadership. Prices shoot back up. OPEC will cut supply in winter, families will get crushed, and Biden will give another speech blaming everyone but himself. If Republicans hold strong, we can force drilling, pipelines, and real energy independence back into the conversation. The only way forward is to unleash American energy, period. Drill, frack, build, and stop kneeling to OPEC.
I think we'll see short-term relief into fall, but the writing's on the wall for winter. Heating oil demand will rise, OPEC will pull back, and families will feel the pinch again. That's why energy independence isn't just a slogan. It's a strategy. Until America produces enough to buffer these swings, we're always going to be riding someone else's roller coaster. Families should prepare now, because the dip we're seeing isn't going to last.
What happens next is a controlled crisis. Mark my words. By December, we'll see oil prices spike, heating costs surge, and the same politicians who let it happen will swoop in with a solution. Subsidies, emergency packages, more central control. The relief now is just setting the stage for the squeeze later. OPEC plays its part, DC plays its part, and the losers are always the same: regular Americans. It's not an accident, it's a script.
Unless we break the cycle, what happens next is exactly what always happens. Relief now, pain later. And every time it happens, more families fall behind. More kids grow up in poverty. More communities lose stability. We need leaders willing to stop playing short-term politics and start investing in real alternatives. Until then, OPEC holds the leash and families pay the price.
So there you have it. Brian says drill or die. Rachel says brace for winter pain. Daniel says it's all a setup for the next crisis. And Skylar says families won't escape until we break the cycle. Either way, enjoy the cheaper fill-up now, because none of us believe it's going to last. When we come back, we'll hit our Friday mini-segments. Brian's MAGA fire, Daniel's conspiracy board, Rachel's red pill rant, and Skylar's green lens. Plus the Patriot Minute and final thoughts. Don't go anywhere. Before we wrap the heavy news with the crew's lightning segments, I want to take a minute. A Patriot Minute. Tonight, my focus is on our National Guard families. These are men and women who have stood watch in every crisis this country's faced. Hurricanes, wildfires, floods, overseas deployments. And now they're standing duty during a government shutdown with no paycheck coming in. Think about that. You're pulling shifts on the border, standing guard at an ICE facility, helping keep order at protests, and your bank account is empty because politicians in DC are treating you like a pawn. Guard service has always been about sacrifice. They're citizen soldiers, juggling civilian life and military duty. But that sacrifice shouldn't include being forgotten. If you know a Guard family this weekend, do something for them. Bring a meal, offer a hand, check in on them. That's what patriotism really looks like. Not just waving a flag, but standing with those who stand for us. And to every Guard soldier out there, we see you, we thank you, and we will not stop reminding this country that your service deserves respect, not neglect.
Megafire Friday, baby. And here's the truth. The shutdown isn't chaos, it's control. For once, Republicans didn't roll over. Pork projects in Chicago and New York, frozen. Blue City transit scams, blocked. And now Democrats are running around screaming about WIC while ignoring the fact that they've spent decades shoveling billions into sanctuary cities and foreign aid. The left's meltdown isn't about babies going hungry. It's about their gravy train getting derailed. So yeah, I'll take the heat. If it takes a shutdown to finally put America first again, then let it burn. Because sometimes you've got to scorch the field before you can grow anything real.
Here's what nobody's connecting. DOJ scrapping OCD ETF, the same week cartels ramp up activity, oil markets suddenly giving relief during a shutdown, and Guard families working unpaid. These are not disconnected stories. They're threads in the same web. You destabilize families, you weaken military morale, you free up cartels to move cash, and then you make sure Americans get just enough gas relief to quiet their anger. It's classic crisis engineering: create pain, ease pain, then create more pain. And every time, the end game is the same: more central control, more dependency, and more excuses to grab power. Cartels aren't just drug lords, they're pawns too. And when DOJ decides to kill the one task force following the money trail, you've got to ask, what were they getting too close to? My bet? Names and accounts that the elite didn't want exposed.
Let's cut through the spin. Shutdowns aren't wins when babies go hungry. Republicans might think freezing Blue City pork is smart, and on that part, they're right. But they threw out the baby with the bathwater. Literally. Moms on WIC are staring at shelves, wondering how long their benefits will last. Guard families are serving without pay. That's not leverage, that's cruelty. Leadership means drawing lines between waste and essentials. It means protecting the vulnerable while you fight the powerful. And when you blur that line, you hand Democrats the perfect moral high ground to claim you don't care. I'm tired of governance by theater. Stop playing to the cameras and start playing for the people who actually feel these choices in their stomachs and their wallets.
Shutdowns, DOJ shakeups, oil market manipulation, they all have one thing in common. The people at the bottom pay the price. Families living paycheck to paycheck, working class soldiers, moms trying to buy formula. And what do politicians do? They bicker, they posture, and they let cartels and foreign oil cartels dictate American life. We can't keep living like this. We need energy independence that isn't based on fossil fuel roulette, and we need leaders who see families as more than bargaining chips. Until then, shutdowns will keep happening, task forces will keep disappearing, and families will keep struggling while elites cash in. It's a broken cycle, and the only way forward is to stop treating people as collateral damage in political games.
All right, crew. We've hit the shutdown fallout, DOJ's cartel shakeup, and the oil market roller coaster. We've done the Patriot minute. We've burned through Brian's fire, Daniel's board, Rachel's rant, and Skylar's lens. Now it's time to close it out the way we always do on Fridays, with final thoughts from the panel. This is where we cut through the banter, strip back the noise, and leave our audience with the core truth each of us sees. Brian, since it's MAGA Fire Friday, I'll let you kick this off.
Shutdowns aren't fun, but neither is being robbed blind year after year by politicians who treat our tax dollars like monopoly money. This week proved that when Republicans finally hold the line, the left melts down because their gravy train stalls. And yeah, it hurts that WIC moms and guard families get caught in the middle, but that's the fault of decades of Democrat failure, not the people actually trying to fix it. Sometimes the medicine tastes bitter, but you swallow it anyway because it's the only way to get better. I'd rather take the heat today and win back control for Americans tomorrow than keep caving and watching our country die a slow death. That's my fire, and I'm not backing down.
I don't disagree that waste needs to be cut, but leverage without compassion is a losing formula. Moms wondering if they can feed their babies aren't props, they're people. Guard families serving without paychecks aren't bargaining chips. They're citizens who deserve better. I can respect the strategy of freezing pork projects, but I can't respect letting essential programs twist in the wind. Leadership is about priorities, and if we can't draw a line that protects the vulnerable, then we've already lost the moral argument. Politics should be about making life better for people, not harder. And until we get back to that, the system will keep breaking trust.
This week showed once again that chaos isn't a bug. It's the system working as designed. You break down trust in government with shutdowns. You dismantle anti-cartel task forces to protect elites, and you let oil markets jerk families around with deliberate timing. All of it ties together. The people at the top thrive when regular Americans are distracted, divided, and desperate. Don't think for a second it's random. It's engineered. And every time you see a crisis followed by a convenient emergency fix, that's proof of the script. The question isn't whether they'll do it again, it's whether enough people will finally wake up and stop playing along.
From the guard families working unpaid to the moms on WIC staring at empty shelves, the common thread is that families are treated as expendable. Politicians bicker. DOJ rearranges itself. OPEC manipulates supply. And it's always everyday people who bleed for it. And until leaders are forced to see people as more than props or pawns, nothing changes. We need stability, we need compassion, and we need real investment in a future that isn't chained to broken systems. Until then, families will keep being collateral damage, and I'm tired of watching the most vulnerable pay the highest price.
Here's where I land at the end of this week. A shutdown should never be about scoring points. It should be about fixing a broken system. And yes, freezing billions in pork projects is the right kind of fight, but letting guard families serve unpaid and moms worry about baby formula is the wrong kind of collateral damage. That's not conservative, that's careless. Then you look at DOJ gutting the one task force that actually scared cartels, and you realize the system doesn't want to be fixed. It wants to protect itself, even if it means sacrificing American lives to fentanyl, chaos, and corruption. And on top of it all, we're still being played by OPEC, riding a roller coaster of prices that proves we're not in control of our own energy destiny. So what's the thread here? It's that ordinary Americans are the ones paying the price for decisions made by leaders who will never feel the consequences themselves. I've been a conservative for 32 years, and I'll tell you this straight. Our fight isn't just against Democrats or bureaucrats or foreign oil cartels. It's against the idea that regular people don't matter. I reject that. You matter. Your families matter. And if that means calling out my own side when they forget that, so be it. Because patriotism isn't about loyalty to a party. It's about loyalty to the people who make this country what it is. So as you head into your weekend, remember this. They may hold the power, but we hold the truth. And as long as we keep speaking it, stirring thought, and refusing to shut up, they can't win. Remember to speak truth, stir thought.